country music in Nashville, Texas, Jesus, Tennessee. I don't even know where I am. You take the girl out of Texas, can't take Texas out of the girl, right? All right, so thank y'all for being here. This is going to be a fantastic LQM. I'm excited to be up here first talking about how to engineer positions for profit. Now, as you know here at How to Manage, profit is not a dirty word at all. We're not ashamed to talk about profit. We're not ashamed to be talking about making money. We're not ashamed to talk about that. That is the point. One of my members just this week went to one of his new associates because he is not hitting the minimum hours he needs to bill. And the associate looked at him and he goes, "It's all about money to you, isn't it?" You know what I said? I said, "You tell that motherfucker legal aid is down the street." Right? So, yes, we're a for-profit entity. I got news for you. It's not a nonprofit board I'm very proud of. We still have to make sure we have enough money to keep the lights on. We may even be nonprofit, but really through COVID, even we struggled to keep the lights on and to keep everything flowing so the nonprofit would still exist by the time COVID was over. So whether you're for-profit or whether you're nonprofit, your metrics matter. All right, there I am. I am the lead of the CFO program here at How to Manage. August, I believe 18th will be my 3rd year anniversary here, along with Doug Watson, who started with me, who'll be doing the next section. Dougie, Uncle Doug. And you can see I'm also provide leadership for bookkeeping that doesn't suck. They will not let me call myself the bookkeeping queen, so perhaps if y'all want to start a petition, I will support it. All right. What is profit? So first I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mindset, about what profit is. This is what most of you think about when I talk about profit. So now, what was your net profit? What was your gross profit? What was your net operating profit? It's a noun. It's a dollar figure. It's something finite, black and white. You can give me a percentage. You can give me a number, right? But profit is also a verb. We don't use it like a verb very often. Maybe it would sound weird to use it as my verb if I said, you know what? For the time I invested sitting down with the person who mentored me, I really profited from that relationship. Profit happens anytime there's an exchange, and the people who are part of that exchange have the perception that they received more value than they gave. And yes, the verb of profit, did you profit from something, is in perception. Now, when you bring together two entities or two people or two businesses, and there's going to be some sort of a transaction, there's, generally speaking, 3 types of resources that can be involved: time, money, reputation. So I want you to think about that in context of your law firm. At the end of the day, you have a law firm that is really part of a profit flow, where people should be experiencing a sense of incremental benefit for what they contributed. Your firm is made up of employees. Ultimately, like I was quoted by my mentor, you never make money unless there's a third party involved, Evelyn. You got to have clients. So we're going to look at this a little bit deeper and talk about then, where does profit happen in this economic sense in your law firm? So between your firm and your employees dealing with your clients, there's an exchange. Now, on the surface, we talk about people come to you with a problem. You're offering them a solution, and they're paying you for that solution. But I want you to think about this a little bit deeper. One of the things R. John said when he hired me is that as a coach, or even though I'm not an attorney, I had hired more attorneys than any other coach he'd ever hired. So I've been on the client side of the desk from about 23 transactions hiring lawyers in the last 5 years. Tax, business, family. And I will tell you, what was more important to me, or what was primary importance beyond the money, was the trust I was putting in that relationship. Lawyers, you deal with some of the most sensitive, most vulnerable situations, and people actually, it's that trust they're putting in you that is what they're exchanging for the solution. That trust means more to them than the value, probably, of the money they're giving up, and many times. And a lot of times when you hear that objection about the money, it's because you didn't earn their trust. So this is an exchange. Your clients are going to give you trust. They're going to spend some time with you. They're going to be answering questions that may even be deposed. They're certainly going to be paying you, and they want to receive more value in return for the solutions and for the peace of mind that you offer. So in this situation, the clients are profiting from the solution and from the peace of mind. They're receiving more than they gave. Same thing with your employees. Your employees come to work for your law firm, and they're giving up the opportunity to work someplace else. They're putting their time into your firm. They're bringing their talent. They're bringing their experience. Yes, you're offering them a paycheck, but you're also potentially offering them new experiences. You're offering them a different work environment. And so there needs to be this perception of more value gained than what they contributed to the experience. Who here listened to my momentum call on July 7th? Anybody in the room? All right. And I gave y'all some key questions to understand a person you're interviewing, what their decision-making criteria is going to be on whether or not they take that job. And very often people are leaving bad work environments. They're looking for new experience. They're looking to gain something different. If you don't ask the questions, you're not going to know. So I want you to consider every single hiring opportunity as a time that you're really trying to match, that somebody feels like they're going to profit, they're going to benefit, they're going to receive an incremental value for coming to work for your firm. And you have to feel the same about the employee. Especially if you're hiring somebody that you believe can grow, somebody who can be a good fit, somebody who can potentially do multiple things in your firm and can do other things. So between you and your employees, it's also part of this economic flow, part of this economic progress of your firm. Every position in your firm has the potential to be a profit maker. Every position has the opportunity to create incremental value over and above the resources that it consumes. We often talk about this with your legal production staff, their billable time, the revenue attributed to them, obviously with your sales, the number of new matters that are brought into the firm. But every single position in your firm can contribute to your profit model, can contribute to the economics of this profit flow that happens. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Positions don't become profit makers by accident. It takes purposeful design. It takes you taking some time, which is what we're going to do today, and really thinking about these positions in your firms, the ones that aren't traditionally considered profit-centric positions, and what can ultimately make them profitable. Where is the profit opportunity? Where is the incremental value in this particular role with my firm? And then designing it is great, but unless you know how you're going to manage it, it doesn't matter. And to manage it, you have to be able to monitor it as well. So we're going to break it down into these steps as we talk about looking at the profit potential of the positions in your firm. So when you think about this, and you think about roles in your firm, And you're going to ask yourself 4 questions as you're starting to design the position. Now, let me define this for you. In your firm, you have many positions. The position of receptionist, the position of intake, the position of dragon, the position of marketing assistant, even marketing director, position of paralegal, position of associate. But very often when your firm is small, you're going to hire people into a role that's more than one position, a combination perhaps of receptionist and intake. Perhaps somebody who's CFO lead and bookkeeping queen, right? So roles can sometimes be a combination of positions. But the KPIs, the way we look about it, we have to think about it by the position and not by the role. So how is the role, how is the position designed to create, for the opportunity to create profit, this incremental value being created? How's their action, their performance, their activity results in a perception of incremental value, and who has that perception? And then if you design it that way, how will you actually know that it's working? How will you actually know it's working as you intended? What key performance indicator will tell me if it's creating profit and how well, to what degree? Not just yes, not just no. And then, for each key performance indicator, what is the standard and what is the goal? I believe it was in the January 2020 LQM, our John's opening mindset piece was about standards versus goals. You have to have both standards and goals for your KPIs. You have to have both standards and goals for your KPIs. This is what Melissa was talking about at the mic. It's not Mr. and Mrs. Bad Guy, right? It's the standard. This is the expectation for the performance of your job. This is the meets requirement number for your job. The example I gave you earlier. The associate has a standard to bill 90 hours a month. He has a goal of 120, but there's a standard of 90 hours a month. 90 hours a month is you get to keep working here. This is the standard. But if we just have a goal and we don't have a standard, right, people don't know where they exist. And by the way, incentive compensation shouldn't start at the standard +1. It should start much closer to the goal. Because otherwise, they think they're hitting it out of the park at 91 hours, right? If we're going to start rewarding them too close to the standard. We want incentive compensation to be driving them towards more of a goal KPI. What is measured improves. If you're not keeping track of the data behind your positions in your law firm, including the positions that are not in legal production, if you don't have any metrics or any idea what's going on in reception, you can't manage it. How many calls coming into your firm right now are answered and not abandoned? How many are answered and don't roll over? How many calls roll over to the second person in line for the rollover on the phones? How many phone calls into your firm last month were first-time callers into the firm? How many calls per day are you getting? Any one of you who are on Ring Central and Vonage and some of these, all that data is out there. So if you don't know your data, you can't set your KPIs. And we have to have KPIs around all our positions in our firm, not just legal production. And we can't really guess at KPIs without any data. So what we're going to talk about is designing positions for profit, specifically talking about the positions like in the support elements of your firm. Because we focus a lot on your production. We focus a lot on the associates. We focus a lot on the paralegals. But we're going to be focusing on how we design for profit across the firm at all the positions. And so when you're thinking about the positions in your firm, here are some of the things you can ask yourself in order to identify what the opportunity. How can this position contribute to make the firm run more efficiently? All positions can contribute to the efficiency of the firm, not just the people in legal production. Every position in your firm should have some sort of impact on the efficiency in some way. Some roles are critical to helping others work more productively. How many of you law firm owners now have an administrative assistant or a virtual assistant or an executive assistant? It's awesome. Have they helped you work more productively? So their position may be very catalytic, right? The results may be someplace else, but that's still results, right? A person billing an hour for $300 is what I call kind of a black line result. I can literally just draw a line to where the money is, right? But when your legal assistant or your administrative assistant frees you up to do more of the strategy, more of the marketing, God knows hold those marketing vendors accountable, right? The results show up not on the administrative assistant's desk, they show up in the firm and in your productivity. I call that more of a gray line, right? We know it only happened because it was catalytic, because you got some help, right? Even though it's not, quote unquote, the results on that desk. That's okay. One of my firms I work with, they have a estate planning firm. They have a lot of people who are in their customer services, their client services, right? It's really important to them that when they call in, a client calls in, a former client, a current client, they get somebody knowledgeable on the other end of the phone and they feel heard, they feel taken care of, they feel followed up with. Their client service team is part of their signature experience, and it is all about improving the quality of the legal service they deliver in the perception of the client. How does that client feel when every single time they call in, they get a call back from a client service specialist, helping them with whatever they need? Obviously, some matters contribute directly to the sign-up of new matters for the firm. And onboarding new clients, that's more of that kind of black line. It's clear where the results are for the performance in the position. Or they perform the legal expertise that you sold. Maybe they generate more qualified leads into the firm. So you can start to see how being a profit maker can take all kinds of views and can be all kinds of different things. It doesn't necessarily have to be people in legal production who are your profit makers. Every position in the firm can have and has the potential to create incremental value, but it's not going to happen by accident. I have created the 7 golden rules of compensation design for you. My daddy was a Baptist minister, so golden rules just kind of rolled right out of my head. I wonder why. All right. So, here are my 7 rules. Discern the potential of how each position can be a profit maker. And don't worry, or actually I'm going to go through in my presentation at the end, or towards the second part of it, I'm going to go through specific administrative positions, and we're going to kind of do this exercise, okay? So I'm going to do some real-life examples. So if this seems a little bit theory right now, we're going to do this in practice, okay? You design the role, set that base pay range, design the incentive compensation if applicable, then start to interview potential resources to fill the role. And rule number 3 is please don't fucking break rule number 2. All right. Really, guys, you're going to have a much stronger firm if you're defining the positions. You're hiring for a role may be multiple positions, but you need to do this with purpose and intention and not just find somebody really nice and try to figure out what they can do in your law firm, okay? Now you're all going, but didn't Arjan once say, when you find an A player, you need to hire them and you need to figure out how to use them, right? Who remembers Arjan saying this, right? But he's done that when he has designed a company, he has a strategy, he has a business plan, he has potential positions and roles he needs to fill. And so it's not an actual shotgun in the dark, let me just hire them and throw them in anywhere. There's actually a lot of purpose behind it. And that's what I'm telling you. Look, I've been here 3 years, right? This is month 35 and a half. I'm on my third role in the company, right? So, absolutely, it's the opportunity. But I came into a very defined role, right? The bookkeeping practice didn't exist when I walked in the door, but it was already a strategy, right? So my point is that, yes, I'm all about A players. And yes, maybe sometimes you find a person and you redefine the role, right? Oh, this role is going to do this position and this position more, instead of 50-50, more 75-25, right? So you can define the role around the talent, but the role is based on set positions you know you need in the firm, right? Leverage your interviewing process to find out what the employee sees as the incremental value in the exchange of their time and talent for the role. Who heard my momentum call on July 7th? About 50 of you were on there. In that call, I tell you the number one question to ask that will help reveal people's motivation and how you can choose to close them if you've decided you want to hire them for the firm. Go ahead, you had a question?
So you made some hires before you had these brilliant 7 golden rules. How do you...
My daddy was a Baptist minister. We can save you. All right, no. It's called an altar call. Who's your CFO?
I don't have a CFO yet.
Well, I can get you on the list. I know someone. No, I'm just teasing. So, look, if you've hired people and like all this wasn't figured out for you, hired them, you are where you are. Know better, do better. That's what these are all about, right?
Is the idea that we should be broaching this in some form or fashion with our existing employees, or forget about that, that ship has sailed, just start doing this with new employees?
Let me tell you right now, I would encourage you that it is absolutely best practice to know, right now have a conversation with any current employee and ask them that same question that I prompted in that momentum call, right? My momentum calls interviewing hypothetical question to end with is, let's say you got the job, let's wave the magic wand. It's 6 months later, and you're driving into work on a Monday morning at 9 a.m., by the way, #1 time for a heart attack in the United States. Did y'all know that? Google that shit. Not a fucking joke, okay? You're driving into Monday morning at 9 a.m., and you think to yourself, you know what? I'm so glad this worked out. This was the right fit for me where I am in my career. I'm so happy I worked here. You know, sometimes things just fall into place. If that's true, what are the 2 or 3 things that are true about your job? If they mention comp third, it means it's really #1, and they didn't want to fucking tell you it was #1. They'll tell you. I had a person honestly say, well, when I walk in the door, everybody tells me how nice my hair looks. She didn't get hired. Another one say, well, that everybody wants to sit in the break room and talk about their weekend, you know, really kind of like debrief, because, I mean, nobody wants to like jump into work early on a Monday. She didn't get hired either. But if you haven't asked your employees, you know, what's working out well for you? What do you like about your job? If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about your job right now, what would it be? Right? Know this about your employees. Know what they're exchanging for their time, how they feel about exchanging their time and the talent for the role in your firm. That's a very fair conversation to have, because it's not too late for every single position in your firm to be a profit maker. It may just take a little retrofitting and understanding it. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Now, when I talk about designing the role, I'm just going to talk about how when we're designing these roles, we think about how it's a profit maker. Our next section with Uncle Doug is actually going to be a deep dive into the full job description and design of the role. So I'm just talking about one little piece of it in my section. Compensation planning should be designed holistically. Hint, you need a budget, including a plan for labor expenses. Who's been through my budget workshop? Part of the CFO program, you get one free every 18 months. Make sure you take advantage of it. September's already sold out. Get on the wait list. We do a comprehensive labor plan. for not only who you have, who you think you're going to hire, the incremental increases, the bonuses, the incentive compensation we anticipate to do. You got to take that bird's eye view of what's going on with your labor expense. You can't just myopically hire this person, figure it out, hire this person, figure it out, hire this person, figure it out. Because the profit won't just happen. I recently redesigned, because one of my firms is switching to a format where the firm owner is no longer the managing attorney. We're going to have a managing attorney and associate attorneys. Happened to have the turnover that enabled us to gut his entire incentive compensation program and start over with a clean plan. You're welcome. Again, we turned what was a crisis into an opportunity, right? We said, good news. We don't have to unfuck this bitch. They all left. You know? We can just start over, pretend it never fucking happened. All right? Incentive compensation should be the same approach for each, I'm saying type or class, I mean classification. In other words, your associate incentive compensation plan should be similar among your associates. There may be some slight differences in percentage share or something, but it needs to be the same basic formula. Same basic formula for all your paralegals. And so as you get multiple employees, you don't have one associate with one plan, one associate with another, because then tracking it becomes a complete pain in the ass. These 7 golden rules for designing compensation, if you do this and you do it well, it'll help prevent unconscious bias as you hire. Because you have clearly defined the positions, you've clearly defined the roles, and now you're looking for people to fill those roles. You're not just true story. Oh my God, I hate that this is a true story. In 1995, I got to work one morning. I was the accounting manager in about a $400 million a year company. And a girl came into the receptionist. And she said, hi, my name is, whatever the fuck her name was. I'm the new cash application clerk. And we were like, we didn't know anybody was starting today. Oh yeah, Mr. So-and-so said just to ask for him, it was good. Well, Mr. So-and-so got drunk on Saturday night and hired the waitress. Bitch didn't know her ass from a hole in the ground. But he'd hired her. Oh, did I mention he was the CFO? Fucker. Anyway, so don't do stuff like that. Don't meet a nice person and, oh, she needs a job, and oh, she's so nice, and oh, maybe we can have an in-house masseuse because she knows also. Oh, yeah. Design your positions, define your roles, hire someone to fit the role. Now, as I said earlier, you take the girl out of Texas, you can't take Texas out of the girl. So with all apologies to George Strait, I made up a little tune to help you remember this. Write this down, take a little note, so you can take it everywhere you go. Hire with your head, trust your gut, don't hire with your feelings or you'll get fucked. I'll be here all week. Try the veal. Tip your waitress kindly. All right. What about incentive compensation? So their entire momentum call is about incentive compensation. I'm not going to redo incentive compensation today. Work with your C-suite, whether you have a CFO or not. CEO, COO, CFO, we can all help you with the actual nuts and bolts design of incentive compensation. But here's what I want you to know about it. 2 questions you ask yourself when you design incentive compensation. How do I want them to act? And what do I want them to prioritize within their scope of responsibility? Perfect example. I've sat down and done detailed analysis on lead data that came into a law firm, where we had an intake person that was busier than a one-armed paper hanger trying to keep up with all the leads that came into the firm, right? And we were at this point, we were trying to discern some of the marketing. We weren't at a point to hire a second intake person. But we sat down with the intake person, and we knew certain lead sources had a much higher percentage of qualified leads. And it had been this way for months. It was not a mystery. And we sat them down, and we said, these are the leads to prioritize. I'd rather you follow up on a lead from this lead source than chase a lead from this other lead source. I'd rather you do the post-consult follow-up from the leads that ultimately came from this source than they came from this source. The intake person doesn't know that. They're just sitting here working leads, doing their jobs, doing their follow-up. They're following your procedure. But we had better information that would help them prioritize how they did their job. They don't know this unless we tell them. Incentive compensation. You want them to prioritize properly within their scope of responsibility. So, getting now into some of the examples, positions and profit flow. We talk a lot about legal team productivity. We know how your associates and your paralegals and your case managers and your legal assistants contribute to the profitability, to the revenue of your firm. This is something we talk about a lot. We even talk a lot about the obvious value creation from the sales process, from your dragons, right? It's pretty black and white, right? They either made a sale or they didn't. We had a client to onboard or we didn't. Those are those positions that I call kind of have that really direct correlation to what they were able to create for your firm. So some aren't as obvious, such as reception, intake, and your marketing assistants. So now what we're going to actually do is go through these support positions one by one. And I'm going to go through what I think about as I think about design. And again, these are examples, guidelines, not gospel. This is for you to start this conversation with your C-suite and really think about the roles in your firm and the impact that they have, which is why you have the chart in your book that gives you an example how to do this kind of across your firm, right? The two charts, I'll give you the page numbers here. So yeah, the second one is on page, oh Lord, I don't have my glasses on. 22 and 25, right? So kind of having this thoughtful process for all the positions on your firm. And this is a way to help you. And again, on your legal team, y'all are really pretty good at knowing what those KPIs are. You may not have the standards, but you definitely have the goals on your legal team. So maybe all you're missing is kind of that standard number, right? But for your support positions, this is meant to help you focus. And again, when it comes to your support positions, should they have more than one KPI? Yes. What I'm focusing on with my CFO hat on you is the KPIs that I think really tell you if it is part of that profit making, if it's really creating the value. Because what I don't want you to do is design your KPIs around these positions and not have at least one of them that lets you know if it is contributing to the profit flow of your law firm model. So I'm really focusing on the ones and talking through it with you, the ones that I feel help you know if it is really a profit maker for your firm. And so here we go into our examples. All right. Receptionist. Nothing beats a good gatekeeper. Can I get an amen? How many of you get bullshit sales calls transferred to your cell phone? I hope no one. A good gatekeeper is worth their weight in gold. Not just for you, the owner. By the way, your law firm, how many of your law firms have your name somewhere in the title? How hard do you think it is for some random ass salesperson to call up and ask for you? Like nothing. Like even the dumbest salesperson on earth can call and ask for the dead guy's name who's on the marquee, right? But here's the thing that you may be missing. Your receptionist, and beyond the receptionist, maybe the next layer, the legal assistant, they really need to be gatekeepers on your legal team. Can you just call your doctor's office and get your doctor on the phone? I've used the same estate planning attorney for 21 years. I've called his paralegal with a question more times than I would like to remind you. She's never answered the phone. But her message says, this is so-and-so at so-and-so law firm. Obviously, your calls are important to me. If this is an urgent matter, hit 0 and the receptionist will track mine down. Otherwise, leave a message and I return all calls the same day, usually between 3 and 5 p.m. I've been doing business with him for 21 years. I actually made my husband run the report out of our QuickBooks. I probably shouldn't have done that. We paid them about $60,000 across various matters. And she's never answered the phone when I called, and I don't care, because she always calls me back. They need to be gatekeepers for your legal team. Let me tell you why. University of California, Irvine did a very famous study that said when a person is working on something, writing something, in a state of productivity, interruption comes in. When they resume work, it takes 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get in the same state of productivity they were when they were interrupted. Hey, you know all those pre-bills where you're saying, why the hell did it take you 2 hours to review this motion? It should have taken an hour and a half. Why does it say this took an hour and a half? That should have taken 30 minutes. Well, how many times did the ding-dong get interrupted? I understand when you're small, it may be the receptionist and then the phone rolls to the paralegal because that's all the staff you've got. But the minute it's not all the staff you've got, don't let the phones ring next to the paralegal. The receptionist's job is to be interrupted. It is. She's going to get interrupted. She's the receptionist. She's answering the phone. She is the gatekeeper. It is such an important part of your productivity. It is so important to your profit flow. It is so important to your client experience, right? That the receptionist does answer the phone. It's so important to your sales process that the phone gets answered. So the receptionist, to me, their biggest role in your profit flow is their role as gatekeeper, keeping everybody else doing what they do. And with their block calendars, because you went to the strategic calendaring workshop, they've got time blocked off. Shout out to Jessica. They got time blocked off to return client calls. Obviously, if there's an urgent matter people need to get through, and certainly some of you work in practice areas where there are urgent matters. Absolutely. I'm not telling you not to. But you need to have a mechanism that allows them to be the gatekeeper. Does everybody see where this can be part of your profit flow experience if they are really helping shield your legal team from unnecessary interruptions? Is that pretty obvious? So one of the KPIs you can do is look at the number of calls that were answered, look at calls abandoned. Look at number of calls that didn't roll over to the second or the third person. All of your voice over IP systems should be giving you this data. Intake specialist. The most important thing I think an intake specialist can do as far as the profit flow of your business is getting qualified leads to schedule consults. I recently designed an incentive compensation plan for an intake specialist because for this one firm I'm working with right now to reach their goals, we know exactly how many consults they've got to get every single month of qualified leads. So we have a flat bonus that the intake specialist will reach if she gets X number of consults scheduled in a given month. Guess what? I gave the dragon veto power so they can actually push back if it was not a qualified lead because we have clearly defined avatars. So we also have a stopgap where a person just can't schedule, get their bonus with no recourse if they truly aren't qualified leads, because we've been very specific about the avatar of what a qualified lead is in this particular company. And not only do we need them scheduled, but if they don't show up, they're probably not going to buy, right? So we have the intake specialist also responsible for the show-up percentage and the kind of pre-consult reminders and the text messages and the rescheduling if it needs to happen. Because we got to get those butts in the chair. We get the butts in the chair, we're going to close whatever the percentage is in this law firm. The conversion percentage at consult is very, very consistent. We got to game a scale. and we've dumped the money into marketing, we've got the leads coming in, we should have the qualified leads to get there. Marketing assistant. Qualified leads into the firm. Qualified. 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 I talked to one more marketing vendor that tells me I can make the phone ring 100 times. I'm like, well, if only 10 of them are qualified, I don't care. The leads have to be the type of leads that actually matter for your business. So here, it depends on what your marketing assistant is doing. Are they running all of your social media? Then let's look at the qualified leads that are coming from the channels they have influence over. Are they trying to book speaking engagement? Are they doing all the follow-ups on your webinars? Are they setting up professional referral sources? So you have to think about what their circle of concern is and put those metrics around the things they really have an influence over, right? You always want the KPI you're measuring somebody on, something they have influence and control over. Marketing is about bringing leads into the firm. Specifically, I want qualified leads. But for example, your dragon probably doesn't have any influence over how many times the phone rings in a month. Legal assistant. I love legal assistants as a CFO. I love legal assistants. Somebody asked me why. Because they make everybody else more productive when you use them correctly. Associates and paralegals are going to have administrative crap that ends up on their desk, right? They just are. They're going to have administrative non-billable stuff that comes up. If we've got a good, competent legal assistant that they can truly delegate all that to, not only do your paralegals and your associates have better job satisfaction because they're not doing a bunch of administrative tasks, which may actually help improve your retention and their satisfaction in their job, but it pushes a whole lot of excuses out the door why they can't hit their billable goals. Legal assistants also, just because of the nature of the role, tend to have obviously a fairly modest, kind of pay range, slightly ahead of receptionists, generally slightly below a paralegal. And even if we're just billing them out at $75 or $100 an hour for the things they truly do that are legitimately billable, we can usually get them to a 2 or 3 times ROI with a very low amount of billable time. They can be very, very profitable for the firm. But again, this is one of those times where all their profit doesn't show up on their desk. It shows up on the paralegals and the associates because they are catalytic. Just like your administrative assistant was catalytic to your performance and the return that you're able to provide to your firm and what you're able to produce, your legal assistant can be that catalyst for your legal team and still profitable. So again, we want them doing, I'd rather have your legal assistant doing non-billable work than your associates. Wouldn't you agree? I'd much rather have your legal assistant doing non-billable work than your paralegals, right? So I actually like having parameters for the non-billable tasks they get done. I want them to get all the non-billable tasks done in the world. And even if it means they build a little bit short on their $75 an hour stuff, well, if the associate was freed up to bill $350 an hour and the paralegal was freed up to bill $150 an hour, I don't care. Because if that legal assistant is billing enough to pay for themselves and still be a gross profit, the true gross profit is showing up on the associates and the paralegals who aren't bogged down with the administrative stuff. And what does it cost you to replace an associate when they quit? Besides the time, frustration, and anxiety, right? So we can also use them to help with part of your retention plan. All right. Does anybody have any questions on those before I go to billing? The next slide is billing specialist, office manager, and PLA. Does anybody have any questions on these? You can go up to the mic before we continue on to the next page. Yeah.
Just a quick clarification between the administrative assistant and the legal assistant, please.
To me, administrative assistant, the titles are probably more or less interchangeable. To me, a legal assistant is supporting the legal team specifically. An admin or executive assistant is more supporting the owner and doing more of a everything for the owner type of thing. In my vernacular, the way I think about it, right? I mean, my last executive assistant, like, took care of everything, booked the vacations, booked my dentist appointments, did all of that. So when I'm talking admin assistant, I'm really talking somebody who's a catalyst for administrative type relief. Your legal assistant might be called an administrative assistant if they're doing those tasks for your legal team in terms of administrative work. Yeah, it's just vernacular. All right, no other questions? Y'all are either dazzled with brilliance or baffled by bullshit. Can't tell which. All right. Billing specialist. Now, all of the ones on this page can almost be interchangeable. Because sometimes you don't have a billing specialist, you have an office manager. And sometimes what we really need to move in a firm to make a difference is so important, we're going to make it a key priority on your PLA. Ultimately, a PLA's KPIs are the KPIs of the firm, right? But very often, we will design, again, this is a place where incentive comp can be really used as a tool. I have a firm right now I'm working with, they've just hired what I pray is a rock star PLA after the last one that was not so rock star-ish. And we know to make a difference in that law firm right now, we've got to move the percentage of work that's actually collected. We've come a long way. But we know we need to improve the collection rate. And when I say the collection rate, for all the legal work we do, what we've actually ended up as money, cash in the bank for all that legal work that we did. We know it is critical to this firm that we get that piece shored up through proper trust replenishment, not working on matters that don't have any money in trust, prioritizing matters that have money in trust, and having a good comprehensive follow-up process after our billing cycles. It is so important that even though here I have it as a billing specialist KPI, it is a key KPI with incentive comp tied to it to a PLA. Because it's what's going to move the needle in that firm right now. And this is why you have to work with your C-suite. It's not a one shoe fits all, one size shoe fits all. Because you want to prioritize the things that are really going to move the needle. The billing specialist can have a huge impact on how much of a percentage of what you bill got transferred from trust? How much after a billing cycle was collected in the next 30 days? Never went to an over 30-day kind of column on your AR aging. Office manager. Your office manager and your PLA are very focused on your systems, looking at your systems, looking at the maintenance of the systems. The other thing that I think is a big indicator of where they create profit in an office manager or a PLA is when you're in a new legal staff, because if you're at the level you have a PLA, you're probably hiring. Even the best law firm may have 20% voluntary attrition a year. 1 out of every 5 employees is going to leave in the course of a year, even the very best law firm. That means you always are hiring and you have people onboarding. And so having somebody who is the bird dog on the training protocols and the learning experience of the new people who come into the law firm, if you have somebody making sure that legal staff is up and productive within that training period, they're worth their weight in gold. Even if they're not the ones doing the training, but they're monitoring what's going on in that probation period. And April's looking at me because she gives them 30 days and not 90. But, right? I'm teasing you. But my point is, whatever your parameter is, these are the types of things that can help move the needle. And again, when we get to the level of office manager, when we get to the level of PLA, the firm's KPIs are their KPIs. But we want to focus on the ones that are going to make the biggest difference in the law firm right now. Go ahead, Adam. They're getting it.
From the mic already.
You're good. Yeah.
We have a role in our firm called the Client Happiness Coordinator. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a role that sometimes a dragon would fill, but post-engagement, it's sort of the liaison between the client and the attorney and making sure that the client has an ally in the firm who's not the attorney. So I'm thinking about the relevant KPIs, and the one that always came up was like positive reviews, right? But I'm also, would it make more sense to do like a net promoter score for that type of role, or is there something else that we should be looking at over which that person can have more control?
Here's what I would say for that role, very specifically. I would put a standard and a goal around their outreach. You need to be more worried about the clients who aren't calling you than the ones who are. And the former clients who aren't calling you versus the ones who are. So I would put a standard and a goal around how many outreach opportunities this person should have to current clients, touching base, making sure everything is on track if they have any questions, right? To previous clients, seeing what's going on, following up. I noticed we wrapped up your case a year ago. The firm just wanted to reach out and make sure that everything has continued with this business transaction you anticipated, or see if anything else has come up. Oh, and by the way, you haven't been in contact with us for a year. We've started a subscription model for general counsel services. I'd love to email you over just a brief information about it, just in the event a firm like yourself would need something like that. That's actually a new offering that we have. Kind of a gas call, right? Thinly veiled, not so thinly veiled, gas call. So that's what I would look at in that role, you know? And yes, you want the clients calling in to have a good experience. And we all know that the lack of communication regarding the way a case is progressing is like the #1 cause for like bar complaints, right? So making sure that no client has gone 14 days with some sort of contact on an active matter. What would that do to help prevent that issue, right? That's risk mitigation. Risk mitigation worth its weight in gold. We can mitigate risk. That is part of your profit flow. I mean, knowing, right, that you're not going to get that email from the bar. I think that's what I would start with.
Yeah, that's why we created the position. We actually had our dragon do a gas call, upsold a subscription client from $600 a month to $1,600, so an extra $1,000 a month of recurring revenue just because of a gas call. So
Exactly.
hell yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Hi.
How are you?
Well,
So, tore the whole firm down, rebuilding everything. Page 22, you have your list of people, and in attempting to prevent the mistakes, I'm trying to figure out, obviously every firm is different, everything, there's subtle
Absolutely.
differences, but is there a general idea in terms of order of who you want to hire as you're continuing to grow?
So as you continue to grow, one of the key things that you want to do is the first thing is what you want to definitely focus on replacing yourself and having redundancy for yourself. Remember when earlier people were standing up and down, working less in the firm, making $1 million doing this, right? So one of the key things, and this is working with your CEO and your COO, it is different for every single firm, kind of what that order, like there's no golden order we go on in the hiring, right? But that said, again, those roles are always happening, or those positions are always happening, even if one person in the role is covering multiple. Someone's answering the phones. Maybe right now it's Ruby Receptionist, right? But somebody's answering the phones. Somebody's handling intake calls, right? So it's important that in that exercise, even like marketing assistant, if you don't have a marketing assistant in the firm right now, guess who it is? You, right? Somebody's doing those things. So it's important to think about this as the position and then start thinking about it as the roles. And that is different for every firm. I'm not sure that was terribly helpful, but you're right that it is a little bit unique, right? With some firms, especially if you're flat fee, and with flat fee, fairly low average case value, we got to make the phone ring, right? They're probably going to be hiring an intake specialist long before a PI firm that's only, I'm saying only, but I'm saying this, we only take in 3 or 4 cases a month. We have a huge average case value. The flat fee estate planning firm is going to need an intake person long before the PI firm is, just by virtue of survival. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So, again, all these on this page are fairly fluid, right? Because you want these people, you want the people in these administrative roles focused on what's going to move the needle next. Go ahead.
So all of your KPIs are a percentage. What's the interplay between KPI and capacity, and how do I know when my receptionist is at capacity? Because when I try to enforce KPIs, they're like, well, I'm really busy. And so what's the interplay with measuring capacity and the KPI?
Very, very good question. Yes, you have to understand capacity to set a KPI that makes sense. So the way I would do this would be assessing it over time of the actual data. This is where if you're not measuring it and you don't have the data, it'll be a brown KPI. Do you know why it's a brown KPI? Because you pulled it out of your ass and it didn't have any, documentation behind it, okay? So, but again, things like with the receptionist, right? Have them track what they're doing, guys. Have them track what they're doing. I literally had one firm this last week. I'm trying to remember now exactly what the context was. Oh, it was a family law firm, and they were trying to say they couldn't figure out if they had enough leads right now coming in that they should have a dedicated intake person. And when I said, well, are you tracking every lead that comes into the firm? No, they don't have time. My receptionist, my paralegal's out sick, my receptionist, and the billing clerk is answering the phone when the receptionist can't. I'm like, okay, can these two bitches manage to keep hash marks on a Post-it note for a week? Hash marks, like days held captive, Rush Limbaugh style or whatever, right? Look me in the eye and tell me, oh my God, I'm so busy. All right, fact, like anything as far as data is better than nothing, okay? And if in the course of the week they make 20 hash marks, I can put the numbers together to justify how an intake specialist is going to be absolutely a full-on ROI for that law firm. If they get 3, not so sure, right? We got to retool some responsibilities. But without any data points, how can we make a decision? We can't. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joy Edwards with the Edwards Law Group, and we take on the ugly and family law cases so our clients don't have to.
Love it.
I'm based in Atlanta, and I've been with HTM since February, so I actually know what KPI means, but I have my paralegal with me who has said that you've alluded to it, but she's not real clear. So
Sure.
Can you clear it up, please?
Yeah. So key performance indicators are things that are, a matter of fact, Melissa said it at the mic, and I wrote it down because I thought the way she said it was so good. Yeah, I'm a little partial to Melissa. I was her first CFO. So objective criteria was the word you used, objective criteria. So it's the way to take your feelings out of somebody's performance. It's objective criteria. How many billable hours did the associate have? How much time had to be written off from the time the billable associate had? How much time did we have to cut out of pre-bills? Those are all KPIs. How many new leads came into the firm? How many of those leads were qualified leads? That percentage of qualified lead is a key performance indicator.
And Evelyn,
Yes.
can we please tell them, because I know you're trying to teach compensation, for those of you who need help for KPIs, we do have a workshop specifically for 2 days of KPI training coming up in August. All you have to do is go to the forum on the events page, or come here to the back of the room and see Renee. Thank you.
Yes. And and the reason I have this caveat on the call, it is going to be different in different law firms, right? And it's going to be different based on your billing model. This looks different in a PI firm than it does estate planning, than it does in family law. where we're doing contingency, flat fee, and hourly billing respectively. So your billing model has an impact on it. Your practice area has an impact on it. But KPIs are objective criteria. They take the emotion out of it. They should be, how many times did the phone ring? How many times did you answer the phone? And again, with the systems y'all have in place, most of y'all actually have access to that data. You know, how many hours were you in the office? I have one of my members here. Their legal staff records every single hour they work, whether it's a billable or a non-billable hour, they put it in the system. We had 20 work days the other month. 2 of the associates recorded 130 hours in total. Where the hell were they? Last time I checked, 8 times 20 was 160. What were they doing, guys? So, and again, it's not being a hard ass. You've got to know what people are doing, right? For the love of all that is holy and contingency and flat fee firms, your legal production team needs to be keeping some sort of relative track of what they're working on. What if your flat fee skew is entirely wrong because your associates are spending 3 times the amount of time you think they are on an estate plan or on a Medicaid crisis application? Guess what? Your hypothetical gross profit might as well start with once upon a fucking time, because it ain't happening. Right? Without the data points, you cannot make decisions. You cannot manage what you choose not to measure.